your 4-year-old loved one in an accident that would ultimately change their life forever. Now imagine that was you. How would you feel? Would you feel sad? Or maybe angry? Or would you even feel confused? Would you let this one moment take control of your life forever? Hello, my name is Isaiah Natale. I'm 26 years old. I lived at Raker for 6 years this month, and this is my story. Now, I bet you're wondering how I got into this contraption we humans call a wheelchair. When I was 4 years old, I was in a car accident. I have a T10 complete spinal cord injury. That may sound like a lot of gibberish to some of you, but I promise that it's not. It just means I have no use or feeling from my belly button or below. But don't feel sorry for me, because I never had to experience what a Charlie horse feels like. This accident was so devastating, not only because I was paralyzed, but because it took the life of my foster brother, who was sitting right next to me and severely injured my foster father. To understand how I started conquering control, let me take you back to the very first traumatic experience I ever faced, being placed in foster care at the age of 3 and nearly drowning. I didn't really remember this near drowning at this age because I was so young. As I got older, I had PTSD flashbacks from it. I remember this one time I had this dream or nightmare, you can decide what you want to call it, of me being in a pool surrounded by fire trucks and ambulances. And when I woke up, I asked my now adopted mother if I drowned when I was younger. She said yes. From the age of 3 to 4, I lived with my first foster family. After my accident, I went to live with my forever family, the Natales. Who knew that they would be forever? Even though I was in a loving home, growing up was still a struggle for me. Why? Because I'm black and in a wheelchair, living in a predominantly white neighborhood and going to a predominantly white school with jocks. So if you thought I was going to fit in, boy, were you mistaken. I was verbally abused due to my medical condition and called the N-word by my peers. Not only did I have to deal with that type of trauma as a young child, I had to deal with the pain of losing my biological mother by the age of 7, who I stayed in contact with up until her death. When she was alive, she would come to the Natale's house and do my hair, and we'd spend quality bonding time together. She reassured me through her endless loving actions that everything was going to be okay. She passed away from acute respiratory distress syndrome, also known as ARDS, which is complications from pneumonia. And when I went to her funeral, I remember touching her cold, lifeless, pale skin. I was broken and thought my world was lost. Losing my biological mother by the age of 7 was horrendous. Almost losing my life to multiple life-threatening infections I couldn't even fathom. By the age of 10, I had an infection known as methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, also called MRSA. Now this part might be a little disgusting. I had gaping holes in my hips. The pain radiating up my rib cage was so excruciating, and the smell of rotting flesh was so putrid that it made me physically sick. That wasn't the only medically terrifying thing that happened to me. At the age of 14, I had 3 back surgeries. First, to put a rod in my back to stabilize my spine from the scoliosis I acquired due to my car accident. Second, to sew my shoulder muscles back together because the surgeon forgot to. And third, to clean out yet again another infection I acquired in my young life. My childhood was like no other. Whether I had to deal with the near drowning at the age of 3, my car accident at the age of 4, bullying as a small child, the death of my biological mother by the age of 7, multiple life-threatening infections by the age of 10, and multiple back surgeries by the age of 14. It wasn't until a couple years later that the effects of this trauma would come to light. Life began to take a toll on me. At age 16, I started dealing with severe mental illness. I dealt with depression, suicidal ideations, self-harm, addiction, and overeating. And yes, overeating is an addiction. I remember countless times I tried to take my own life, but then I made the decision that I like to call conquering control. Now, conquering control isn't about taking over the world. It is about controlling our reactions to actions that have happened to us. So you may be wondering, with this much pain inside me, how did conquer and control help me? Well, let me tell you about my journey of self-control. Forgiveness allows you to heal. I wish someone would have told me that sooner. Forgiveness was one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn, and it didn't come naturally. For close to 20 years, I held in anger and resentment towards people who didn't even know I was angry with them. I remember going through most of my life thinking how much I hate my first foster family. I thought of things like, I will despise you until the end of time. I hope you're suffering like I'm suffering. And if I hurt someone, it's because of you. At age 17, I was destroying property at my adoptive family's house. While dealing with being mentally fragile, I had the cops called on me many, many times. One of those times, you wouldn't even begin to understand the severity of my anger. On a seemingly quiet night, I was a boiling pot, and with a little bit of heat, I would overflow. I remember going into my adoptive parents' kitchen and demanding and telling them that I want to move out at 17, not 18. As you know, being underage and disabled, it's kind of hard just to pack your bags up and leave. So as any good parent would, they told me no. And you guessed it, that was the little bit of heat that would send my boiling emotions to overflow. I began yelling and cursing at them. Anything in my path was getting thrown across the room. The worst part was when my adoptive father walked towards me to calm me down, I lunged at him to attack him. That's when my adoptive mother called to him to get him away from me. And when he went to her, they called the cops. The cops came and took me for a mental health evaluation. As simple as to know was not to send me into a rage. I was also self-harming and taking the anger out on myself. I felt furious with what I went through with that first foster family. My anger stemmed from not being able to forgive them. The crazy part is, they lived in a different state than me now, and I haven't spoken to them since I was 4 years old. After I was admitted to a psychiatric unit for over 2 months, that's when I knew I needed to learn to forgive, so that I could do the first step to conquering control. I had to show emotion to learn to forgive. I had to learn to cry. I had to learn to let my guard down. As I was going through another mental breakdown, I wanted to run away. As I was getting ready to roll out the door, my adoptive mother stopped me, consoled me, and let me cry in front of her. She let me know it's okay to feel those emotions. That was just the beginning to learning self-forgiveness. I also had to say things like, I forgive myself for what I put me and my family through. And I forgive myself for holding on to past trauma that was beginning to take control of my world. I remember the endless nights of coming to realization that I cannot change my past, but I can change how I react to it. Do you know what forgiveness did for me? Do you know what I learned? That forgiving others is easy, but forgiving ourselves is a totally different ballgame. Conflict within ourselves is where the root of most of our anger stems from. So I had to dig deep and think to myself, who is this hurting? Them or me? And when I found out the answer was me, that's when I knew I could use forgiveness to break down the wall of trauma, resentment, and being mad. Because do you know what mad spelled backwards is? Damn. And what is a dam? It's a wall that holds in anger, hate, and prevents healing. A dam is meant to hold things back, but forgiveness is the wrecking ball that breaks it down and opens up a pathway to healing. So next time you're feeling angry, hateful, or just mad at someone or yourself, just know that you can break down that wall by forgiving others, but most importantly, forgiving yourself. Forgiveness can lead into becoming someone, conquering control of your world, and not letting your world conquer you. In my darkest times, I was searching for inspiration. I remember my adoptive mother saying, "You're black and in a wheelchair. The world's going to work against you." That began to light a fire under me. My inspirational speaking mentor made me realize that if I want to become someone, that I need to be the change, because the world won't do it for me. Also, when I was at my lowest point, my speaking mentor questioned my purpose in life, and to him, I simply stated, I want to inspire others. You may be wondering, how did I get here? How did I get here speaking to all of you? First, I had to learn to forgive others, but most importantly, learn to forgive myself. I also had to quit all drugs and alcohol. Anything that wasn't beneficial to me, I had to stop. Second, I had to take better care of my mental health. I had to start praying more and seeking out my God, because without my God, I wouldn't be here speaking to any of you. I also had to reach out to a counselor and psychiatrist when I needed help, because there is no shame in asking for help. And third, I had to remember to honor my deceased mother. This was the woman that gave me up for adoption so that I could have a better life than what she could ever provide me with. So by honoring her, I enrolled in college, and I'm currently one semester away from graduating. I became an inspirational speaker to help others, because my mother was big on helping others. And I started taking better care of myself, because I know my mother would want me to be happy, healthy, and safe. I want to carry on my mother's values of being a loving, caring, productive individual. You may be wondering now, what is my mission? What do I want to do with this? I want to travel the world in hopes of inspiring people from all walks of life, old to young, disabled, non-disabled, religious, non-religious, and sick and healthy. Why? Because I was once that person with no guidance and no sense of direction. And if I could lift up one person and help them start conquering control of their world, then I would have accomplished my mission. Before I go, I want to say, don't let your mad become your dam. Learn to forgive others, but most importantly, forgive yourself. Start conquering control of your world and stop letting your world conquer you. My name's Isaiah Natale. Thank you.